The bark shattered the morning calm like gunfire. Rex's snarl echoed through Denver International Airport, deep, relentless, primal. His body coiled tight as a loaded spring, every muscle locked on the pregnant woman, frozen 3 feet away. Officer Jack Sullivan's hand moved instinctively to his weapon. In 15 years handling K-9 units, he'd never seen Rex react this way. To an expectant mother, the German Shepherd's training was flawless. His instincts, infallible. Sarah Mitchell's face drained of colors. Her hands trembled over her swollen belly, 7, maybe 8 months along. Travelers stopped mid-stride, phones raised, recording everything. "Rex, easy, Jack commanded, but his partner wouldn't break focus. Security guards approached. The air thickened with attention. Jack studied Sarah's eyes. Terror mixed with something else. Guilt. Desperation. His gut twisted. Rex had never been wrong. But if he was right this time, this woman wasn't carrying just a baby. She was carrying something far more dangerous. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Along with the city you're watching, from now, let's continue with the story. 5 years ago, Jack Sullivan learned that one wrong decision could cost everything. The warehouse had been dark, suffocating with the stench of rust and fear. Jack and his partner, David, had moved through the shadows, closing in on a drug operation that had poisoned their city for months. When they reached the fork in the corridor, Jack made the call. Go left. 2 words that changed everything. David rounded the corner first, his Cadian shadow at his side. The gunfire erupted before Jack could shout a warning. 3 shots. David collapsed into a spreading pool of crimson. Shadow lunged at the shooters, snarling, desperate to protect his fallen handler. The dog took a bullet to the shoulder but kept fighting. Jack reached David seconds too late. His partner's eyes were already glazing over, blood bubbling at his lips. Take care of Shadow, David whispered, his hand clutching Jack's vest. And his pups. Those were David's last words. Shadow survived the surgery, but never recovered. The trauma had broken something vital inside him. 2 weeks later, the veterinarian made the call. Jack couldn't. Shadow was laid to rest beside his handler. But Shadow had left something behind, a litter of 6 puppies born a month before the raid. Jack stood in the shelter, staring at the squirming bodies, and saw one pup that looked exactly like his father. Same dark saddle marking, same intelligent eyes. Jack took him home that day, an 8-week-old bundle of fur that somehow carried his father's spirit. But the dog wasn't just a partner. He was penance, a living reminder of Jack's failure. Every command Jack barked came with the weight of guilt. Every training session pushed Rex harder than necessary, driven by Jack's need for perfection, for redemption. Yet Rex never wavered. When Jack woke screaming from nightmares of that warehouse, Rex was there, pressing his solid warmth against Jack's chest. When Jack sat alone in his apartment, staring at David's photograph, unable to speak, past the lump in his throat, Rex rested his head on Jack's knee. The dog loved him, despite everything. Now, standing in the airport with Rex's bark still echoing off the high ceilings, Jack felt that familiar twist of doubt. His hand hovered over his radio. One call would bring security swarming. But what if he was wrong? What if Rex had finally made a mistake? He looked into Sarah Mitchell's terrified eyes, then down at his partner. Rex's gaze never left the woman's belly. His body remained rigid, every sense locked onto something Jack couldn't see. David's voice whispered through his memory. "Trust your dog. Always trust your dog." Jack keyed his radio. "This is Officer Sullivan. I need a medical examiner to gate CSIN now." Sarah Mitchell followed Jack into the security examination room, her steps hesitant, her breathing shallow. She kept one hand protectively over her belly, the other clutching the strap of her worn purse. Rex padded alongside them, his eyes never leaving her midsection. "I don't understand," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "I'm just traveling to visit family. Why is your dog acting like this?" Jack didn't answer. He'd learned long ago that silence often revealed more than questions. Emily Carter arrived within minutes, her medical bag in hand, and her expression all business. She was a veteran forensic physician who'd seen things most people couldn't imagine. But when she ran the portable scanner over Sarah's belly, her face went pale. "This isn't right," Emily muttered, adjusting the device. She ran it again, then a third time. "What is it?" Jack asked. Emily looked up, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his stomach drop. "This woman isn't pregnant." Sarah's face crumpled. "What are you talking about? I'm 7 months." "No." Emily's voice was firm. "You're wearing something sophisticated." The examination room fell silent, except for Rex's low growl. With Sarah's shaking consent, Emily conducted a physical examination behind a privacy screen. What she found made Jack's 15 years of police work feel inadequate for what he was witnessing. The belly was a masterpiece of deception. Medical-grade silicone, warm to the touch, perfectly weighted to mimic the movement of a third trimester pregnancy. Whoever designed it had thought of everything. It even had a fake heartbeat mechanism that pulsed at exactly 150 beats per minute, the normal rate for a 7-month fetus. The surface temperature matched human skin at precisely 98.6 degrees, but inside, built into 12 separate sealed compartments, was something far more sinister. "Liquid methamphetamine," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. She held up a sample vial, the clear liquid catching the fluorescent light. Each compartment holds about 100 milliliters. That's 1.2 liters total. Jack did the math instinctively. Street value $500,000. In one fake pregnancy, Sarah Mitchell had become a human smuggling vessel. When confronted with the evidence, Sarah collapsed. Not a gentle sinking into a chair, but a complete physical breakdown. Her legs gave out, her body folded, and a sound emerged from her throat that Jack had only heard once before, the night David died. It was the sound of a soul breaking. "They told me it was medical equipment," she sobbed, rocking back and forth on the floor, "a fetal monitoring device for testing airport security protocols." "Who told you that?" Jack knelt beside her. "The company, Medical Transport Solutions. They hired me on Facebook." Sarah's words came in gasps between sobs. $5,000 for one trip, just wear the device, fly to Phoenix, deliver it to their medical team. Jack exchanged glances with Emily. This was bigger than one desperate woman. "Tell me about yourself." "Mrs. Mitchell." "Miss," Sarah corrected automatically. "Single mother. My daughter Emma is 4 years old." "Where is Emma now?" "With my mother in Boulder." But Sarah's eyes darted away as she said it. And Jack caught the tell. She was lying. "I'd like to call your mother to confirm," Jack said gently. Sarah's face went white. "No, you can't. She's sleeping. She works nights." Another lie. Jack could feel it. "Miss Mitchell, I need you to be honest with me. Where is your daughter?" Sarah's composure shattered completely. Tears streamed down her face as she pulled out her phone with trembling hands. She opened a video message and handed it to Jack without a word. The footage showed a little girl, blonde pigtails, maybe 4 years old, sitting in a dark room. Her hands were bound. Her face was streaked with burrs. A distorted voice spoke over the video. "You missed your check-in. Strike one." Jack's blood turned to ice. "They took her," Sarah whispered. 3 weeks ago. They took Emma from her preschool. Said if I didn't work for them, I'd never see her again. If I went to police, she'd die." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Sarah wasn't a criminal. She was a victim. And whoever orchestrated this operation understood human desperation better than any psychologist. "I used to be a nurse," Sarah continued, her voice hollow. "Got fired for reporting a doctor who was falsifying prescriptions. My ex-husband left me with $85,000 in gambling debts. I was drowning. When the offer came $5,000 just to wear a medical device and fly somewhere, it seemed like an answer to prayer. But it wasn't," Jack said quietly. "No." Sarah looked at him with eyes that had seen the bottom of hell. "It was a trap, and my baby girl is paying the price for my stupidity." Rex moved closer to Sarah and, surprising everyone, gently licked her hand. The gesture was so tender, so unexpected, that Sarah broke down, crying again, but this time she wrapped her arms around the dog's neck. "We're going to find Emma," Jack promised, though he had no authority to make such a promise. "I swear to you, we'll bring her home." They moved Sarah to a safe house on the outskirts of Denver, a nondescript ranch home with bars on the windows and 2 uniformed officers outside. Jack assured her she'd be protected while they investigated. But protection meant nothing when your child was in the hands of monsters. That first night, Sarah refused dinner. She sat on the edge of the twin bed, staring at her phone, refreshing her messages every few seconds, as if willing Emma's captors to contact her again. The device stayed silent. Jack left her with a female officer and drove home to his empty apartment. Rex settled into his usual spot by the door, but his eyes tracked Jack's every movement, sensing the tension that radiated from his handler like heat. Sleep didn't come. Jack lay awake thinking about Emma's face in that video. The terror, the confusion. She looked so much like another little girl, a girl Jack had failed. The second day brought no news. Sarah had stopped crying. That scared Jack more than the tears. She'd entered that hollow place beyond grief, where the body simply exists, waiting for the world to end. The third day, Jack received the call at 2 a.m. "Officer Sullivan, you need to come to the safe house now." Jack's heart stopped. "It's Sarah. She's alive." Barely. He made the 20-minute drive in 12. Rex in the passenger seat. When they burst through the door, Jack found Sarah on the bathroom floor, a kitchen knife beside her, and blood streaming from shallow cuts on her wrists. The female officer had found her just in time. "I can't do this anymore," Sarah whispered as the paramedics bandaged her arms. "I can't breathe, knowing she's out there all scared. calling for me." Jack knelt beside her. For a moment, he wasn't seeing Sarah's face. He was seeing another woman. 5 years ago, David's wife at the funeral, and beside her, a 5-year-old girl with David's eyes, Lily. Jack had made a promise at David's graveside. "I'll watch over her," he'd told David's widow, "like she was my own." But he hadn't. The guilt had been too heavy, too suffocating. Every time he thought about visiting Lily, he saw David bleeding out in that warehouse, saw Shadow taking a bullet meant for his handler, saw his own decision go left that had killed them both. So Jack had stayed away, sent money on birthdays and Christmas, but never visited, never called. 5 years of a little girl growing up without her father, and Jack couldn't even face her. He'd failed David. He'd failed Lily. Not again. "Listen to me," Jack said, gripping Sarah's shoulders. "We're going to find Emma. I promise you that. But I need you to stay alive. Your daughter needs her mother. What if they've already—" Sarah couldn't finish the sentence. "They haven't. They need you alive to control you. That means Emma is leverage. And leverage only works if it's intact." The words were harsh but true. "Can you be strong for her? Just a little longer?" Sarah nodded, though her eyes remained empty. Jack left the safe house and drove straight to police headquarters. Captain Richard Hayes was already in his office despite the early hour, nursing black coffee and reviewing case files. "I need resources," Jack said without preamble. "Full task force. This is human trafficking, kidnapping, major drug smuggling. Sullivan, sit down." "Captain, there's a 4-year-old girl." I said, "Sit." Jack remained standing. Hayes sighed, removed his reading glasses, and rubbed his eyes. "I understand your emotional investment in this case, but we can't allocate a full task force for one child. We have 17 active investigations, budget cuts coming next quarter, and the mayor breathing down my neck about gang violence. One missing child from a drug mule's family isn't going to get priority. She's 4 years old, and there are 40 other missing children in this state right now. I'm sorry, Sullivan, but we have to make choices." "The hell we do," Jack's voice rose. "This isn't about one child. This is about a trafficking network that's using kids as hostages. How many other mothers are out there right now being forced to smuggle drugs because someone has their baby? Then build me a case, evidence, connections. Give me something I can take to the mayor, and maybe we'll talk task force." Hayes put his glasses back on, returning his attention to the paperwork. "Until then, you're a canine officer, not a detective. Process the Mitchell woman through the system and get back to your regular duties." "You're making a mistake. That's not your call to make. And Sullivan—" Hayes looked up, his expression hardening. "You're too emotionally involved in this. I'm removing you from the case, effective immediately." Jack felt his jaw clench. "Sir, that's an order. Hand over your case notes to Detective Rodriguez. She'll take point from here." Jack left the captain's office, feeling like he'd swallowed broken glass. The bureaucracy that was supposed to protect people had just condemned a 4-year-old to whatever hell her captors had planned. He found Detective Maria Rodriguez in the break room, pouring herself the sludge that passed for coffee. Maria was a good cop, sharp, dedicated, with 8 years in the department. She and Jack had worked together before. Heard you got pulled from the Mitchell case, Maria said. Hayes thinks I'm too emotional. Are you? Jack thought about Lily, about David, about every failure that haunted his nights. Yeah, I am. But that doesn't mean I'm wrong. Maria studied him for a long moment. What do you need? Officially nothing. I'm off the case. Jack lowered his voice. Unofficially, I need someone to look the other way while I investigate. And maybe feed me information the department isn't willing to act on. That could cost me my badge. It could. But there's a little girl out there who's running out of time. Maria took a long sip of coffee, then nodded. What Hayes doesn't know won't hurt him. Just be careful, Jack. Whatever you're planning. Back in his truck, Jack looked at Rex. It's just you and me now. Boy, like always. Rex's tail thumped once against the seat. Jack pulled out his personal laptop and started digging into medical transport solutions. If the system wouldn't help Emma, then he'd tear it down himself. One way or another, he was bringing that little girl home, even if it cost him everything. Medical Transport Solutions existed only on paper. The website looked legitimate professional design. Testimonials from supposed clients, a Denver business address. But when Jack drove to the location, he found a mail forwarding service in a strip mall between a nail salon and a pawn shop. The company had no physical presence, no employees, just a web of lies designed to look real enough for desperate people. Maria called him that evening with the first real break. I pulled financial records. Medical Transport Solutions has been operating under different names for 3 years. 47 transactions, 47 women paid $5,000 to $10,000 each. 47 victims, Jack said. And here's the thing. Every single one has a child between 3 and 8 years old. Single mothers. Most are immigrants or have spotty employment histories. Women who wouldn't be believed if they went to police. Jack felt sick. This wasn't opportunistic crime. It was systematic predation. There's more, Maria continued. I found communication records. After the first successful delivery, the women are contacted again, asked to do another run. Most refuse. Then their kids have accidents, falls downstairs, hit by cars, always survivable, always terrifying. They're breaking them down. Exactly. Get them hooked with money. Then switch to fear. Some of these women have made over 20 trips, 20 times being forced to smuggle drugs while their children are held hostage. Jack's hands tightened on his phone. We need to find where they're keeping the kids. Already working on it. But Jack, you need to understand something. This operation has protection. I tried to pull FBI records on similar cases, and I got stonewalled. Someone with authority doesn't want us digging. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He sat in his living room with Rex's head on his lap, thinking about the machinery of evil, how it found the most vulnerable and turned their love into chains. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop investigating or the girl dies. They were watching him. Good. That meant he was getting close. The next morning, Jack met with Dr. Emily Carter at her forensic lab. She'd been analyzing the fake pregnancy device, trying to trace its origin. Whoever made this knew what they were doing, Emily said, showing Jack microscope images. The silicone is medical grade, probably purchased from a legitimate supplier, but the engineering, that's military level. The heart rate mechanism, the temperature regulation, this wasn't cobbled together in someone's garage. Can you trace the components? I've identified the manufacturer of the silicone, a company in Arizona that supplies hospitals and prosthetic makers. They require licenses for bulk purchases. Emily pulled up records on her computer. 3 large orders in the past 2 years. 2 went to legitimate medical facilities. The third went to a warehouse registered under, let me guess, a shell company. Bingo! And that warehouse? Emily smiled grimly. It's 20 miles from the Mexican border. Jack felt pieces clicking into place. They're manufacturing the devices near the border, recruiting vulnerable women online, then using their children as collateral to force compliance. It's brilliant in a horrifying way, Emily said. Airport security is trained to be sensitive around pregnant women. Who's going to demand an invasive search of someone who appears to be expecting, especially if she has medical documentation? Documentation they provide, forged but convincing. I've seen the papers Sarah was carrying. They looked legitimate to me, and I'm a doctor. Jack left Emily's lab with a destination. But he couldn't go alone, not without backup and resources. He needed Rex to be more than his partner. He needed Rex to be their weapon. The Denver KTI training facility occupied 5 acres on the city's outskirts. Jack had access through his credentials, and more importantly, through his reputation as one of the best handlers in the department's history. He started retraining Rex to detect the specific chemical signature of the liquid methamphetamine they'd found in Sarah's device. German shepherds had 220 million scent receptors compared to a human's 5 million. Rex could identify compounds that machines missed and do it in seconds rather than hours. They worked from dawn until dusk. Jack hiding samples around the facility while Rex learned to distinguish the target scent from dozens of similar chemicals. The dog's intelligence shone through. What should have taken weeks, Rex mastered in days. On the 4th evening of training, Jack sat with Rex under a spreading oak tree as the sun painted the sky orange and gold. He ran his hand through Rex's fur, feeling the solid warmth of muscle and bone. "This mission is dangerous, boy," Jack said quietly. "More than anything we've done. The people we're going after, they don't have rules. They hurt kids. They'll hurt you if they get the chance." Rex looked up at us with those knowing brown eyes. "If something happens to me, Tom will take care of you. I made him promise." Jack's voice cracked. "You deserve better than a broken-down cop with too many ghosts. But you're stuck with me." Rex pressed his head against Jack's chest, and Jack felt the familiar sting of tears. This dog, this creature who owed him nothing, loved him with a purity that humans couldn't match. Didn't matter that Jack had failed David. Didn't matter that he'd spent 5 years drowning in guilt. Rex loved him anyway. "You're all I have," Jack whispered. "Please, be safe." The breakthrough came on the 5th day. Maria called with excitement, barely contained in her voice. "I found something in Sarah's video. Background audio analysis picked up airplane engines specific enough to identify the model. And there's a train whistle every 15 minutes, which means tracks nearby." "How many locations in Denver matched those parameters?" 3, but one of them," Maria paused for effect, "matches property records connected to our shell company." Jack felt adrenaline surge. Send me the address. Already did, Jack. I'm coming with you. This isn't a one-man operation. If we get caught, then we get caught together. They planned the raid for midnight, when darkness would provide cover. Just Jack, Maria, and Rex. No official sanction, no backup. If things went wrong, their careers were over. If they did nothing, Emma died. The warehouse sat in an industrial area east of Denver, surrounded by chain-link fence and barbed wire. Lights blazed inside despite the late hour. Jack and Maria approached from the rear, Rex silent as shadow beside them. They cut through the fence and slipped inside through a loading dock door left carelessly unlocked. The interior was exactly what Emily had predicted, a small-scale manufacturing operation. Work tables held partially completed silicone prosthetics, molds for belly shapes in various sizes, chemical storage containers marked with hazard symbols. But no people, no children. This is just the production site, Maria whispered. The kids must be somewhere else. Rex's nose was working overtime, cataloging cents. Suddenly, he froze, then moved purposefully toward a back office. Jack followed, his hand on his weapon. Inside the office, they found records, names, addresses, photographs. 47 women, 47 children. Jennifer Blake, 32. Son Michael, aged 6. Linda Hayes, 41. Twin daughters, aged 7. Story after story of desperation exploited, love weaponized. And there, in the middle of the pile, was Emma Mitchell's kindergarten photo, those innocent eyes staring up at him. Jack photographed everything with his phone, hands shaking with rage. A sound outside made them freeze. Voices, multiple people approaching. They slipped out through a side window seconds before the door opened, hidden in the shadows. Jack watched 3 men enter the warehouse. They were discussing a shipment, talking about moving the packages before law enforcement caught wind. One man's voice rose above the others. The Mitchell woman screwed up. The cops have her. Boss says cut our losses and dump the kid. Jack's blood turned to ice. They were going to kill Emma. Maria grabbed his arm, shaking her head frantically. They were outnumbered, outgunned. Going in now would get them all killed. But as they retreated to their vehicle, Jack made a decision. He wasn't waiting for permission anymore. He wasn't following rules that protected predators while children suffered. He was going to tear this organization apart from the inside. And God help anyone who stood in his way. Back at Jack's apartment, Maria spread out the photographs they'd taken. We've got proof now, documented evidence of a trafficking network. This is enough for a warrant, maybe even federal intervention. How long will that take? With the bureaucracy days, maybe weeks. Emma doesn't have weeks. Jack looked at Rex, sleeping peacefully by the fireplace after their night's work. We need something bigger, something that forces immediate action. His phone rang. Unknown number. Jack answered. Putting it on speaker, Officer Sullivan. The voice was electronically distorted. You've been busy, breaking into private property, stealing documents. That's not very legal. Who is this? Someone who knows where Emma Mitchell is. Someone who could make her disappear forever. A pause. Or someone who could help you if you're smart. What do you want? Meet me tomorrow night. Come alone. Bring your dog. I'll text you the location. The line went dead. Maria stared at Jack. It's a trap. Of course it is. Jack looked at the evidence scattered across his coffee table. But it's also our only lead. Whoever this is, they're connected to the operation. Maybe they're having second thoughts. Maybe they're setting me up. Either way, I'm going, then I'm coming too. No, if this goes bad, someone needs to be alive to finish it. Jack handed Maria a flash drive. Everything I've documented is on here. If I don't come back and take it to the FBI, to the media, anywhere that will listen. Maria took the drive, her expression grim. Don't you dare die on me. Sullivan wasn't planning on it. But as Jack lay in bed that night, Rex's solid warmth pressed against his side. He wondered if he was leading them both into darkness they wouldn't escape. Wondered if Emma would pay the price for his recklessness. Wondered if, once again, his decisions would cost innocent people everything. The text arrived at 3 a.m. Warehouse complex, Route 89, 20 miles north of Mexican border. Tomorrow, 10 p.m. Come alone with the dog. Jack forwarded the address to Maria, then stared at the ceiling until dawn. Rex sensed his tension and stayed close, occasionally nuzzling Jack's hand. By afternoon, they had a plan, a dangerous, possibly suicidal plan, but a plan nonetheless. Maria would go in first, posing as a new recruit. Dr. Emily had provided a replica pregnancy device. This one fitted with a GPS tracker and a hidden microphone. Maria would wear it and try to get inside their operation, to find where they kept the children. You'll need a story, Jack said as they prepared. Something that explains why you're desperate enough to work for them. Maria's face hardened. I'll tell them my son died from a drug overdose 8 years ago. That I need money for the funeral debt. It's close enough to the truth that I'll sell it. Jack didn't ask what she meant. Everyone in law enforcement carried ghosts. The hard part was Rex. K-9 officers were too recognizable, too distinctive. They needed a cover story that explained why Maria had a German shepherd. Emotional support animal, Emily suggested. Plenty of people travel with him. Get him a vest, some paperwork. As long as he doesn't act like a police dog, they might not question it. Jack spent hours drilling Rex on new commands. Forget your training. Act like a pet. Don't react to drugs or weapons. Be friendly, harmless, unremarkable. It went against everything Rex had been taught for 5 years. The warehouse complex sprawled across 10 acres of desert scrub, surrounded by razor wire and security cameras. 5 separate buildings connected by covered walkways. Guard towers at each corner. This wasn't amateur hour. This was organized, funded, professional. Jack and Tom Harris, the FBI agent who'd been David's friend, watched from a ridge half a mile away. Tom had come when Jack called. No questions asked. Some debts transcended jurisdiction. I've got 12 agents in position, Tom said quietly, scanning the complex through binoculars. But if this goes south, we're looking at a firefight. It won't go south, Jack said, watching Maria's tracker on his phone. She was approaching the main gate now. Through the binoculars. Jack watched Maria present herself at the entrance. 2 guards checked her identification, made a phone call, then waved her through. She disappeared into Building 3 for 30 agonizing minutes. Jack listened through the hidden microphone as Maria was processed. Questions about her background, why she needed money, whether she understood the risks. Then a new voice, smooth and cold. I am James Cole. I run operations here. Tell me, Miss Rodriguez, why should I trust you? Because I have nothing left to lose. Maria answered, My son is dead. My savings are gone. I need money, and I'm willing to do what it takes. And the dog? Service animal. For anxiety. I can't function without him. A pause. Jack held his breath. Let me see the animal. Through the microphone, Jack heard footsteps. Then Rex's breathing, steady and calm despite what must be overwhelming sense of drugs and fear. This is a working breed, Cole said. German Shepherds are police dogs, military dogs. He's registered as an emotional support animal. Maria replied, Check the papers. Another pause, then Cole's voice. Sharp. Brett, test the dog. Jack's stomach dropped. No, he whispered. A man, presumably Brett, said, Come here, dog. Jack watched through the binoculars as Rex was led from the building into an outdoor area. Brett walked him past several containers, clearly trying to see if Rex would alert to whatever was inside. Show no reaction, Jack breathed. Please, boy, show nothing. Rex's training screamed at him to alert. Jack could see it in the dog's posture, through the binoculars, the slight tension, the way his head turned toward one container. Rex knew there were drugs there. Every instinct demanded he signal. But Rex had learned something else over 5 years. He'd learned to trust Jack absolutely. And Jack's final command had been clear: act like a pet. Rex's ear twitched. Nothing more. Brett led him past 3 more containers. Rex remained calm, even wagging his tail slightly. He's clean, Brett said finally, but his voice carried doubt. Still don't like it. Too well trained for a pet. Maybe I should test him another way. The sound of a gun being drawn. See how he reacts to gunfire. Jack was already moving, Tom grabbing his arm. Wait! You go in now. She's dead. Through the binoculars, Jack watched the scene unfold with his heart in his throat. Brett had his pistol pointed at Rex's head. Then Rex did something extraordinary. The dog stepped forward and gently licked Brett's free hand. Tail wagging in a perfect imitation of a friendly, oblivious pet, Brett laughed. Maybe I'm paranoid. He's harmless. Jack exhaled shakily. Good boy. Such a good boy. Maria's tracker moved deeper into the complex, into Building 5. Through the microphone, Jack heard doors opening, then Maria's sharp intake of breath. Welcome to the holding area, Cole said. What Maria saw made her voice shake, despite her training. How many? 23 women currently in rotation, 17 children in protective custody. Don't worry. We take excellent care of them. They're our most valuable assets. Jack pulled out his radio. All units, we've confirmed the location. Building 5, multiple hostages, including minors. Tom was already coordinating with his team. We breach in 5 minutes. Sullivan, you stay here? Like hell I do. That's an order. You're not FBI. You're not even on duty. You go in there. Anything you find gets thrown out of court. Jack wanted to argue, but Tom was right. So he stayed on that ridge, watching through binoculars as federal agents surrounded the complex. Maria's voice came through the microphone. Jack, I have visual on Emma. She's here. She's alive. Relief flooded through him. Get her out. Get them all out. The breach happened fast. Flash grenades, shouting, the crack of gunfire. Jack watched buildings light up with muzzle flashes, saw agents pour through doors like water through a broken dam. It lasted less than 3 minutes. When the dust settled, Tom's voice came over the radio. Complex secured. 8 suspects in custody, 23 women and 17 children being evacuated. No casualties on our side. Jack ran down the ridge, Rex at his heels. By the time he reached Building 5, children were being carried out wrapped in blankets. Paramedics were checking them over. Women were sobbing in relief and terror. Maria emerged carrying a small, blonde girl in pink pajamas. Emma Mitchell looked exactly like her photograph, frightened, confused, but alive. Jack knelt down as Maria set Emma on her feet. Hi, Emma. I'm a friend of your mommy's. She's been looking for you. Where's Mommy? Emma's voice was tiny. She's safe. We're going to take you to her right now. Jack pulled out his phone and called Sarah. I found her. I found Emma. She's safe. Sarah's scream of joy came through the speaker, raw and primal. Around them, agents were processing the scene, handcuffing suspects, documenting evidence. Children were reunited with photographs of their mothers, waiting for real reunions later. Jack should have felt triumphant. They'd rescued 17 kids, broken up a major trafficking operation, brought down criminals who'd terrorized dozens of families. But something gnawed at him. It had been too easy. Cole had let Maria in too quickly. The defenses had collapsed too fast. And when Jack walked through the captured suspects, James Cole wasn't among them. "Where's the man in charge?" Jack asked an agent. "Escaped out a back tunnel before we breached. We've got teams searching, but he had a head start." Jack's stomach sank. They'd won the battle, but missed the general. He found Maria inside Building 5's main room, staring at a wall covered in photographs. 47 women, 47 children, their faces haunted, desperate, hoping. "We got them," Jack said. "It's over." Maria turned to look at him, and Jack saw something strange in her expression, something he couldn't quite identify. Sadness. Regret. "Is it?" she asked quietly. Before Jack could respond, an agent called them over. They'd found the complex's computer servers. Every hard drive had been wiped clean. Professional, thorough, recent. "Cole knew we were coming," Tom said grimly. "He let us have the children but protected the network. We don't have names, connections, financial records, nothing that leads higher up the chain." Jack looked around at the rescued children, at the women being loaded into ambulances, at the evidence of systematic evil. They'd saved lives tonight, but the machine that had destroyed them was still running, just with different faces and different locations. "This isn't over," Jack said. "No," Tom agreed. "It's just beginning." That night, as Jack drove back to Denver, with Rex sleeping in the passenger seat and Emma safe with her mother, he tried to feel the victory, tried to believe they'd accomplished something meaningful. But he couldn't shake the image of Maria's face, that strange, guilty expression, or the feeling that something much larger and more dangerous was watching them from the shadows, waiting. The celebration at police headquarters felt hollow. Captain Hayes shook hands, praised the operation's success, and promised commendations. Media cameras captured images of rescued children reuniting with their mothers. Sarah Mitchell held Emma so tightly the little girl squeaked in protest, then laughed the first sound of pure joy Jack had heard in weeks. But something was wrong. Jack felt it in his bones. He watched Maria across the crowded room. She stood apart from the celebration, her face an unreadable mask. When their eyes met, she looked away quickly, too quickly. "We should toast," Maria said suddenly, her voice cutting through the noise, "to Rex, the real hero." She poured drinks for the task force, whiskey for the humans, and she'd brought a special meal for Rex. Expensive canned food mixed with bits of steak. "For the hero of the day," she said, setting the bowl in front of the German Shepherd. Rex approached the bowl, sniffed, then backed away. His ears flattened. He wouldn't eat. "Rex," Jack knelt beside his partner. "What's wrong, boy?" Emily Carter, curious, took a sample of the food. Her portable test kit changed color within seconds. "Strychnine, Trish. Rat poison. This is a lethal dose." The room went silent. Every eye turned to Maria. She was already moving, her hand dropping to her weapon. "I'm sorry. I didn't want it to be this way." Jack's gun was out before he finished processing what was happening. "Maria, what the hell are you doing?" "Put the weapon down, detective," Captain Hayes ordered, his own pistol drawn, but Maria had positioned herself near the door, and her gun was pointed not at them, but at the floor. A standoff. Not an execution. Nobody needs to get hurt. I just need to leave. "You tried to poison my dog," Jack said, his voice shaking with rage and confusion. "Why?" "Because you wouldn't stop. Because you're good at your job, and that makes you dangerous." Maria's face crumpled slightly. "I told them you'd figure it out eventually, that we should have killed you in that warehouse. But Cole said no, said we could still control this." Tom Harris moved slowly to the side, trying to flank her. "Maria, think about what you're doing. I've thought about nothing else for 8 years. Maria's voice broke. "Do you know what it's like to bury your child, to watch him die because some drug dealer hooked him when he was 6 years old?" "6, Tom. He was in 1st grade. "Lucas," Emily whispered. She'd read Maria's file, knew about the detective's tragic past. "My beautiful boy, they gave him pills at school, told him it was candy. By the time I realized what was happening, he was addicted. 3 months later, he overdosed. The police never found who supplied him, never even tried very hard, because we lived in the wrong neighborhood." Jack kept his gun steady, but his mind was racing. "So you became what you hated?" "No, I became what was necessary." Maria's eyes blazed. "The system failed my son, failed hundreds of children. So I found someone who understood, someone who'd lost everything too." "Cole," Jack said. "James Cole is my brother, my older brother who watched his own daughter die the same way. Different city, same poison, same indifferent police." Maria's hand trembled on her weapon. "We made a choice. If we couldn't stop drugs from existing, we'd control how they were distributed. No sales to children, no pushers at schools, only adults who chose it." "You kidnapped children," Tom said, anger hardening his voice. "You terrorized mothers. You're no better than the people who killed your son." "We protected those children, fed them, educated them, kept them safe from the streets that would have destroyed them anyway. Their mothers were going to lose them to poverty and violence. We gave them a chance. By holding them hostage," Jack spat, "by keeping them alive long enough for their mothers to earn money to actually provide for them. Do you know how many of those women are better off now? How many use that drug money to get apartments, pay off debts, start over? It's insane." Emily said, You've twisted everything to justify. I've justified nothing. Maria's shout echoed off the walls. I know what we are. I know what I've become. But at least I'm doing something. At least I'm not sitting behind a desk saying sorry. We don't have the budget to save your child. The truth of her words hit Jack like a physical blow. How many times had he heard those exact words from Captain Hayes? How many cases had been closed due to resource constraints while children suffered? But that didn't make Maria right. Put down your weapon, Jack said quietly. Whatever you've done, whatever your reasons, this ends now. Maria smiled sadly. It's already too late. Jack's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check Rex's water bowl from this morning. His blood turned to ice. He looked at Maria. What did you do? I couldn't risk him being at that warehouse. Couldn't risk him detecting the tunnel system or finding the real headquarters. So I added something to his water this morning when I stopped by your apartment to discuss the operation. Maria's voice was hollow. Slow-acting poison. He has about 36 hours. Jack's world tilted. You came to my home. I trusted you. I know. And I'm sorry. But there's an antidote. A very specific antidote that only exists in a few places. She met his eyes. One of those places is in Mexico, in a warehouse owned by our partners across the border. If you want to save Rex, you'll have to go get it. You're sending me into a trap. I'm giving you a choice. Come after me and Rex dies. Go to Mexico, and you might save him. Maria moved toward the door. And just so you know, we've evacuated everyone from that tunnel, moved the operations to 3 new locations. You'll never find them. She was almost out when Jack spoke again. How could you do this? You were one of us. Maria paused, her back to him. I was one of you, until the system I believed in let my son die. Then I became something else, something necessary. She was gone before anyone could stop her, disappearing into the Denver night like smoke. Jack holstered his weapon and dropped to his knees beside Rex. The dog looked fine now, alert and healthy. But Jack knew poisons could deceive, knew that inside Rex's body, toxins were spreading through his bloodstream, destroying him cell by cell. We need to get him to a veterinary hospital, Emily said urgently. The emergency vet confirmed their worst fears. Strychnine poisoning, advanced stage. Rex's nervous system was already showing signs of damage. Without the specific antidote, a rare compound that most hospitals didn't stock, Rex would be dead within 36 hours. The antidote exists, the vet said, checking records. But it's experimental, only available from specialized labs. The nearest one is in Mexico. Jack finished. I know. Tom put a hand on Jack's shoulder. It's a trap. Cola and Maria are waiting for you there. You go to Mexico. You'll be walking into an ambush. Then I'll die. Jack looked at Rex, the dog who'd saved his life more times than he could count. The dog who'd pulled him back from the edge when David died, who loved him despite all his failures. He jumped in front of bullets for me. This is my turn. He started to leave, but Sarah Mitchell blocked his path. Emma clung to her mother's leg, watching with wide eyes. Jack, I need to tell you something, Sarah said. Before you go, you deserve to know the truth. Not now, Sarah. Yes, now. Because if you die in Mexico, you'll die thinking I'm just a victim. And that's not entirely true. Jack stopped. Sarah took a shaky breath. My husband, Michael. I told you he left me with gambling debts. That was a lie. Michael worked for Cole. He was part of the distribution network. That's how he really got into debt. He stole from them. When they caught him, they killed him, made it look like a prison fight. Jack felt something break inside him. You knew about the operation from the beginning, not the details, but I knew Michael had been involved in something illegal. And when Cole came to me after Michael's death, when he told me I owed him $85,000, when he offered me a way to pay it off, she couldn't meet his eyes. I knew it wasn't legitimate. I knew. Then why? Because he showed me pictures of Emma at her preschool, told me how easy it would be for accidents to happen, how little girls disappeared every day and nobody cared. Sarah was crying now, so I agreed to make one delivery, just one. But after the first time, they said I had to do more. And when I refused, they took her, just like they promised they would. Jack stared at her, betrayed on every level. You used me, you used Rex, you played the helpless victim while knowing exactly what kind of people you were working with. I was desperate, and yes, I lied. But Jack, because of you, 17 children are safe. Not just Emma, 17 kids who would still be prisoners if you hadn't been suspicious enough to investigate. She was right, and Jack hated her for it. Hated that she'd manipulated his guilt over David. Hated that she'd put Rex in danger. Hated that he'd fallen for it. But mostly, he hated that he understood the impossible choices people made when they were drowning. Understood that desperation could turn anyone into a liar. Get out of my sight, he said quietly. Back at his apartment, Jack found a USB drive on his doorstep with a note in Maria's handwriting. Jack, you're a good man, better than me, but the system is rotten, and good men can't fix it alone. This drive contains everything names of 200-plus officials taking bribes. Police officers on Cole's payroll, judges who throw out cases, politicians who look the other way. It's my gift to you. Maybe you can change things. Maybe not. But you'll have the truth. I'm going to finish what Cole and I started, not because it's right, but because it's the only way I know to honor Lucas. You can't stop me. But maybe you can stop the others, the ones who created the system that killed our children. Tell Tom I'm sorry. Tell Lucas's grave that Mommy tried. The antidote is in Warehouse 7, Sector C. Cole knows you're coming. He's waiting. This might be the end for both of you. But at least Rex might live. I never meant to hurt you, dog. I know that doesn't matter now, but I wanted you to know. Jack plugged in the USB drive. Files upon files of evidence, bank records, recordings, photographs of officials accepting briefcases full of cash, enough to bring down a significant portion of Denver's political and law enforcement establishment. Maria had been planning this for years. The raid, the exposure, everything, and she'd used Jack as her weapon. Rex whimpered softly. Jack looked over to see his partner lying on his side, breathing rapidly. The poison was accelerating. Jack pulled out his phone and called Tom. I'm going to Mexico. I need you to coordinate with DEA. Get me support. Jack, I know it's a trap. I know Cole wants me dead. But Rex has 30 hours left, and I'm not watching him die because Maria decided to play God. Oh, Jack's voice hardened. And Tom, when I get back, we're burning this city's corruption to the ground. Maria left us everything we need. There was a long pause. Then Tom said, I'm coming with you. You don't have to. Yes, I do. David was my friend too, and I owe you an explanation about that day, about what really happened in that warehouse 5 years ago. Jack frowned. What are you talking about? Meet me at the airfield in 2 hours. Bring Rex. I'll tell you everything. Tom's voice was heavy with old guilt. It's time you knew the truth about the day David died. The line went dead, leaving Jack with more questions than answers and a dying dog he'd sworn to save. He knelt beside Rex, running his hand through the familiar fur. Hold on, boy. Just hold on a little longer. I'm bringing you home, I promise. Rex's tail thumped weakly against the floor, and in that moment, Jack made a decision. He was done following rules that protected criminals and punished the innocent. Done watching children suffer while bureaucrats counted budgets. Done letting good people die because the system was broken. If going to Mexico killed him, at least he'd die doing something that mattered. He gathered his gear, checked his weapons, and prepared for war. Tom Harris was waiting at the private airfield when Jack arrived. The FBI agent looked 10 years older than he had that morning, his face haggard with exhaustion and something deeper, guilt that had been festering for half a decade. Before we go, Tom said, as Jack loaded Rex into the small aircraft, you need to know what really happened the day David died. Jack paused, his hand on Rex's collar. I know what happened. I made the wrong call. I said, go left instead of right. No. Tom's voice cracked. You didn't make that call. I did. The world seemed to tilt. Jack turned slowly to face Tom. What? I was operational commander that day. FBI was running the show. Denver PD was support. When you reached that fork in the warehouse, you asked me which way. I said left. Tom couldn't meet Jack's eyes. David died because of my order, not yours. Jack felt something inside him shatter and reassemble simultaneously. 5 years. 5 years of crushing guilt, of waking up screaming, of drinking himself to sleep while blaming himself for David's death. Why, the word came out strangled. Why did you let me believe? Because the FBI needed to protect the operation. We were 18 months into a deep cover investigation. If it came out that a federal agent made the call that killed a cop, the whole thing would have collapsed. Heads would roll, cases would be thrown out. Tom finally looked at him, and Jack saw tears streaming down the older man's face. So I asked you to take the blame, told you it was for the greater good, that David would understand. David would understand. Jack's voice rose. David is dead, and you let me live with that guilt for 5 years while you protected your career. It wasn't about my career. Tom's voice broke completely. David was my brother. Jack staggered backward as if struck. What? Half-brother. Different mothers. Our father was an alcoholic who abandoned both families. David and I didn't even know about each other until we were adults. Tom wiped his eyes roughly. When we finally met, we became close. He was the best man at my wedding. I was there when Lily was born. We were family. Then how could you? Because I thought catching the people who killed dozens of kids mattered more than one man, even if that man was my brother. Tom's voice was raw with anguish. "I thought if we brought down the whole network, David's death would mean something, but I failed. The investigation fell apart 6 months later. All those months, all that sacrifice, all that guilt I made you carry, it was for nothing." Jack wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, wanted to do anything to release the toxic mixture of rage and relief flooding through him. He wasn't responsible for David's death, but Tom had stolen 5 years of his life, had let him torture himself, had watched him nearly destroy himself with guilt, and said nothing. "I should have told you years ago," Tom said. "I should have told everyone, but every day that passed made it harder. And then I saw what it was doing to you, saw you with Rex, saw you trying to be worthy of David's memory, and I couldn't." His voice failed him. Rex whimpered softly in the aircraft, reminding them both that time was bleeding away. "We'll deal with this later," Jack said, his voice hollow. "Right now, my dog is dying because Maria decided to play God with all our lives. So we're going to Mexico. We're getting that antidote. And then you and I are going to have a very long conversation about truth and consequences. If we survive Mexico, if we survive..." The flight took 2 hours. Tom had coordinated with DEA agents on the ground, but they all knew this was a skeleton crew operation. The warehouse complex where the antidote was stored sat in cartel territory, and James Cole would have every advantage. They landed at a small airstrip as the sun was setting, painting the desert landscape in blood-red hues. 2 DEA agents met them, hardened men who'd seen too much violence to be surprised by anything anymore. "The warehouse is 3 miles east," one agent said, spreading a map across the hood of their vehicle. "Heavy security, at least a dozen armed guards, maybe more inside. We don't have time for surveillance," Jack said, checking his weapon. "Rex has 30 hours. By the time we plan a proper assault, he'll be dead." "Then we go in hard and fast," Tom said. "Create chaos, grab the antidote, extract." It was a terrible plan, but it was the only plan they had. They approached the warehouse compound as darkness fell. Jack left Rex in the vehicle with a 1 DEA agent, promising his partner he'd return. Rex licked his hand weakly, and Jack had to force himself to walk away. The compound was exactly as Maria had described: 5 buildings surrounded by chain-link fence and guard towers. Floodlights illuminated the perimeter. Men with automatic weapons patrolled in pairs. "Building 7, Sector C," Tom reminded him. "That's where the antidote should be." They cut through the fence at a blind spot between guard posts and moved quickly through shadows toward their target. The DEA agents provided covering fire as Jack and Tom breached the door. Inside was chaos. Workers scrambling, guards responding to the alarm. Gunfire erupted immediately. Jack moved on pure instinct, his training taking over. He dropped 2 guards, cleared a corridor, fought his way deeper into the building. Tom was right behind him, returning fire, covering Jack's advance. Whatever had happened 5 years ago, whatever lies had been told, Tom fought like a man seeking redemption. They reached a secured room in the center of the building. Medical supplies lined the walls, refrigeration units humming. Jack found the antidote in a locked freezer. 6 vials marked with complex chemical names. He grabbed them all, shoving them into a protective case. "Got it!" Jack shouted. "Let's move." But as they turned to leave, 3 gunmen blocked their exit. Jack was in front, exposed, an easy target. Tom didn't hesitate. He threw himself in front of Jack, taking 2 rounds to the chest. The impact spun him around. Blood blooming across his shirt, Jack fired past him, dropping all 3 shooters, then caught Tom as he fell. No, no, no. Jack lowered him to the ground. Tom coughed, blood on his lips. Get out of here. Save Rex. You're coming with us. I'm done, Jack. We both know it. Tom's hand gripped Jack's arm weakly. Tell Lily I'm sorry. Tell her Uncle Tom loved her father more than anything. Tell her, he coughed again. Tell her the truths about what I did. She deserves to know. Tom, David would be proud of you, the way you've honored him, the way you never gave up. Tom's eyes were losing focus. I failed him in life. Let me not fail him in death. Go, save your dog, be the man I couldn't be. Harris died in Jack's arms, and Jack felt a complicated grief wash over him. This man had lied to him for 5 years, had let him shoulder guilt that wasn't his, had stolen years of peace he could never get back. But Tom had also just sacrificed his life to save Jack's. Redemption came in strange forms. The DEA agents covered his escape. Jack ran through the compound, dodging bullets. His only thought the antidote clutched against his chest, and the dog waiting for him, Rex, his partner, his family, the one pure thing in his shattered life. He reached the vehicle and climbed in, cradling Rex. I've got it, boy. I've got the medicine. Hold on. The DEA agent behind the wheel gunned the engine, and they raced away from the compound. Automatic weapons fire chasing them into the darkness. The airfield, the plane, the flight back to Denver felt both eternal and instantaneous. Jack sat in the back of the aircraft with Rex's head on his lap, willing his partner to hold on, willing life to stay in that strong body just a little longer. They landed in Denver 28 hours after Maria had poisoned Rex. Jack had 8 hours left. The emergency veterinary hospital was ready. Dr. Emily Carter had coordinated everything. The moment they arrived, Rex was rushed into treatment. Jack tried to follow, but was stopped by nurses. Let us work, Emily said firmly. You've done your part. Now it's our turn. Jack collapsed into a waiting room chair, still covered in Tom's blood, and waited. Seconds became minutes, became an eternity. He thought about David, about Tom, about all the people who'd sacrificed themselves so others could live. He thought about Rex, who'd saved his life more times than he could count and never asked for anything except love in return. After what felt like hours, Emily emerged. Her expression was unreadable. Jack, he couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't exist if the next words were what he feared. Then Emily smiled. He's going to make it. The antidote worked. He's weak, and recovery will take time, but he's going to live. Jack didn't remember standing, didn't remember moving. He was simply there, in the recovery room, kneeling beside the table where Rex lay. The dog's eyes opened, focused on Jack, and his tail managed a weak wag. Hey, boy, Jack whispered, tears streaming down his face. You scared me. Rex licked his hand, and Jack broke down completely. 5 years of grief, 5 years of guilt, 6 years of believing he'd destroyed everything good in his life. All of it poured out in great, heaving while his partner pressed a warm nose against his cheek. I'm here, Jack said. I'm never leaving you again. Never. Till 3 days later, with Rex recovering at home under Jack's constant supervision, Maria's USB drive bore fruit. Federal agents executed simultaneous warrants across Denver. 214 officials were arrested on corruption charges. The story dominated national news for weeks. And James Cole, believing he'd escaped, made one critical mistake. He tried to flee the country through a private airstrip the same way so many criminals before him had evaded justice. But Jack was there, waiting. He'd studied the USB drive, found patterns in Cole's movements, predicted his escape route, and he'd brought Rex, the German shepherd, still weak but determined, caught Cole's scent in a cargo container. Rex barked once, that same urgent bark from the airport that had started everything, and Jack knew. Cole tried to run. Made it maybe 50 yards across the tarmac before Rex, summoning strength he shouldn't have had, brought him down, not with violence, but with the simple act of grabbing Cole's ankle and holding on until Jack arrived. "It's over," Jack said, handcuffing Cole as federal agents swarmed the airstrip. "For you, for Maria, for everyone who thought they could play God with people's lives." Cole looked up at him with cold eyes. "You think this changes anything? The system is still broken. There will always be another operation, another network. You've won nothing." "Maybe," Jack said. "But today, 17 children are home with their mothers, and a good dog is alive. That's not nothing." He walked away, leaving Cole to federal custody, and returned to Rex. The dog leaned against his leg, exhausted but triumphant. They'd survived against all odds, despite all betrayals. Through all the darkness, they'd survived. And sometimes, Jack thought, as he drove home with his partner beside him, survival was victory enough. The courthouse was packed for the sentencing hearing. 89 defendants faced justice in what prosecutors called the largest human trafficking and drug smuggling case in Colorado history. The trials had taken 2 months, but the verdicts came swiftly once Maria's evidence was presented. Guilty, guilty, guilty. James Cole received life without parole. The judge's voice was cold as she read the sentence. "You preyed upon the most vulnerable members of our society. You weaponized the love between mothers and children. You deserve no mercy, and this court will show you none." Cole's face remained impassive as they led him away in chains. He glanced once at Jack in the gallery, and Jack saw neither remorse nor anger, just cold calculation, as if even now Cole was planning his next move from behind bars. Maria Rodriguez was found in Canada 3 weeks after the raid, living under an assumed name in a small town near Vancouver. She didn't resist extradition. During her trial, she cooperated fully, providing testimony that helped convict another 47 individuals in the network. In exchange, her sentence was reduced from 25 years to 15. Jack attended her sentencing. He needed to hear her explain herself one final time, needed to understand how someone he'd trusted could become what she'd become. "I'm sorry," Maria said, when given the chance to speak. Not sorry for fighting a corrupt system, but sorry for the methods, sorry for poisoning Rex, sorry for making Jack doubt himself. She looked directly at him. "Lucas would be ashamed of what I became. I know that now. But maybe, because of what we exposed, other children won't have to die the way he did." The judge was unmoved. Your son's death was a tragedy, but you dishonored his memory by becoming exactly what killed him, someone who put profit and power above human life. Maria accepted her sentence without protest and was led away. Jack never saw her again. Tom Harris was buried with full military honors at Fort Logan National Cemetery. Over 300 law enforcement officers attended. A sea of dress uniforms and solemn faces. The FBI director gave a speech about sacrifice and service, carefully omitting the complicated truth of Tom's final years. But when it was Jack's turn to speak, he told the truth, all of it. Tom Harris made a terrible mistake 5 years ago. He allowed me to take blame for a decision that wasn't mine. He let me live with guilt that nearly destroyed me. Jack's voice carried across the assembled mourners. But in his final moments, Tom made a different choice. He sacrificed his life to save mine and to save my partner. He died trying to right his wrongs. Jack looked at Lily, David's daughter, now 10 years old and sitting in the front row beside her grandmother. Tom wasn't perfect. None of us are. But he loved his brother David more than anything, and he died making sure David's sacrifice wasn't in vain. The 10-year-old girl stood and walked to the casket, placing a single white rose on the flag-draped surface. "Thank you, Uncle Tom," she whispered. "Daddy would forgive you. I do too." 2 weeks after Tom's funeral, the city of Denver held a ceremony at the airport where everything had begun. 80,000 people gathered to honor Rex and the 17 children rescued from captivity. "Sir, to school." The governor herself presented Rex with the Medal of Valor, Colorado's highest honor for a service animal. Rex sat perfectly still as the medal was draped around his neck, but his eyes never left Jack. His tail wagged only when Jack smiled at him. When Jack was asked to speak, he stood at the podium with Rex by his side and struggled to find words adequate for what his partner meant to him. "People ask me what makes a hero," Jack began, his voice thick with emotion. "Is it strength? Courage, intelligence?" He paused, looking down at Rex. "I used to think so, but this dog taught me something different. He taught me that heroism is simpler than that. It's loyalty, it's love, it's standing by those who can't stand for themselves." The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. "Rex has saved my life more times than I can count, but the biggest rescue wasn't from bullets or danger. It was from myself, from guilt and grief that were killing me slowly." Jack's voice cracked. "He loved me when I didn't deserve it, forgave me when I failed, stayed with me when I wanted to give up. That's heroism. That's what real courage looks like." He knelt beside Rex, ignoring the crowd, ignoring the cameras. Just a man and his dog, connected by something words couldn't capture. "He's more than a K-9 officer. He's family. And family doesn't need medals or recognition. It just needs to be there." Sarah Mitchell came forward with Emma, now healthy and smiling. The little girl carried a bouquet of flowers almost as big as she was. She approached Rex carefully, the way children do with dogs, and held out the flowers. "Thank you for saving Mommy," Emma said in her small voice. Rex gently licked the girl's face, making her giggle. The sound of that laugh, pure, innocent, untainted by the horror she'd endured, was worth more than any medal or ceremony. The following week, Jack made the decision he'd been avoiding for 5 years. He drove to the small house where David's widow and daughter lived and knocked on the door for the first time since the funeral. Lily, answered. She'd grown so much, no longer the 5-year-old he remembered, but a young girl with her father's eyes and her mother's strength. "Hi, Lily. I'm Jack. I worked with your dad. I know who you are." Her voice was cautious but not unkind. "Mommy showed me pictures. I should have come sooner. Your dad asked me to watch over you, and I failed. I'm sorry." Lily studied him for a long moment. Then she said, "Daddy told me you were a good man. He was right." Those words, that forgiveness from a child who had every reason to resent him, broke something inside Jack that needed breaking. He knelt down to her level. "Can I visit sometimes? You and your mom, I'd like to tell you stories about your dad, the good memories." "I'd like that," Lily smiled, and Jack saw David in that smile. "Can you bring Rex?" "Every time." Rex was officially retired at age 6, the standard retirement age for working police dogs. Jack adopted him formally, though in truth, Rex had been his from the moment they met. Captain Hayes offered Jack any new K-Champ partner he wanted, but Jack declined. "I'm done with patrol work," Jack said, "but I'd like to train new handlers, teach them what Rex taught me." Hayes agreed, and Jack moved into a training position. He bought a small house with a large fenced yard where Rex could run and rest and simply be a dog. No more danger, no more missions, just peace. Sarah Mitchell avoided a prison time due to her cooperation and victim status. The judge placed her on probation and mandated counseling. She found work as a home health aide, slowly rebuilding her life with Emma. She sent Jack letters every week, updates on Emma's progress, gratitude for his intervention, and slowly, carefully, friendship. 6 months after the rescue, Jack hosted Thanksgiving dinner at his new home. The guest list was unconventional: Sarah and Emma, Emily Carter, Lily and her grandmother, 5 of the women who'd been rescued from the trafficking network, and their children. 18 people total crowded around a table barely large enough, filling Jack's quiet house with noise and life and laughter. Rex lay beneath the table, accepting treats from a dozen different hands, his tail in constant motion. When it was time to eat, Jack stood and raised his glass. The room fell quiet. "I spent 20 years thinking family was about blood," he said. "But blood can betray you. Blood can lie." He looked around at the faces gathered there, survivors, rescuers, people who'd found each other through tragedy and somehow made something beautiful from it. "This dog taught me that family is about who shows up, who stays, who loves you even when you don't deserve it." He looked down at Rex, to second chances, to finding home in the most unexpected places, to Rex. The room echoed, glasses clinking. Emma giggled as Rex licked her hand under the table. Lily told a story about her father that made everyone laugh. Sarah smiled without the shadow of fear that had haunted her for so long. The rescued mothers compared notes on their children's progress in school, in therapy, in reclaiming normal life. And Jack, sitting at the head of a table full of people he'd saved and who'd saved him in turn, felt something he hadn't experienced in 5 years: peace. Later, as the sun set and guests began to leave, Emma approached Jack with a shy expression. "Mr. Jack, can Rex be my dog too?" Jack smiled. "He's everyone's dog, sweetheart. Heroes belong to all of us." "But mostly yours," Emma said seriously, "because you belong to each other." Out of the mouths of children came truth. Jack and Rex did belong to each other, not as officer and Kay not as owner and pet, but as something deeper, family, forged in fire and loyalty and love that asked for nothing except to be given freely. That night, after everyone had gone and the house was quiet again, Jack and Rex sat on the back porch, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. Jack's hand rested on Rex's head, feeling the solid warmth of his partner, his friend, his family. "You saved me, boy," Jack said quietly. "Not just from bullets, from myself." Rex's tail thumped against the wooden deck. "I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I'll spend every day trying to be worthy." Rex looked up at him with those knowing brown eyes, and Jack could swear the dog understood every word. They sat together in comfortable silence as night fell. Two souls who'd found each other in darkness and learned to walk toward light. Home wasn't a place. It was this peace, this love, this unbreakable bond between a broken man and the dog who'd refused to let him stay broken. And that was more than enough. Jack's story reminds us of a truth we often forget in our busy lives. Family isn't always about who shares your name. It's about who shows up when the world falls apart. It's about who stays when staying is hard. Rex never asked Jack to be perfect. He just asked him to be present. And isn't that what we all really need? Someone who loves us not despite our failures, but through them. Maybe you've carried guilt for years over a decision you made, a relationship you failed, a promise you couldn't keep. Maybe you've let that weight convince you it's too late to make things right. But Jack was 50 when he finally forgave himself. 50 when he learned that redemption doesn't have an expiration date. Every morning is a chance to choose differently. Every day is an opportunity to be the person someone else needs, or to finally become the person you've always wanted to be. Gratitude isn't just saying thank you. It's waking up and deciding that today, this moment, this life, broken and beautiful and complicated as it is enough. It's sitting on your porch with those you love and realizing you're already home. Have you ever experienced unconditional loyalty from a pet that changed your perspective on life? What relationship in your life taught you the true meaning of family? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how love found you when you needed it most. Adki, Rut.